Tonight at 10, warm smiles and a cemented relationship as President Trump ends his two-day state visit. But the president still had some strong advice for the Prime Minister on illegal immigration.
I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it destroys countries from within.
And tonight, the president attacked the mayor of London, claiming his absence at last night's state banquet was at his request.
No, I asked that he not be there. He wanted to be there, as I understand. I didn't want him. I've not liked him for a long time.
Meanwhile, parachuted into Windsor for 2 days, the First Lady spent time with the Princess of Wales and some scouts. Also tonight, the High Court rules in favour of the government being able to send an Eritrean man seeking asylum back to France. Top US TV star Jimmy Kimmel is taken off air indefinitely over comments about the murder of the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. And the president, his wife, and their proof that she is and was born a woman.
And in half an hour, a man who died after a double shooting in a London park, which also injured a woman, has been identified as the suspect.
Good evening. After the highly choreographed pomp and ceremony of yesterday, today saw the less scripted and potentially more volatile day 2 of President Trump's UK state visit, which he spent at Chequers, the Prime Minister's country home in Buckinghamshire. In a joint press conference after private talks, Mr. Trump suggested Sir Keir could use the military to stop illegal immigration, saying it didn't matter what means were used. The two men also spent time stressing the close ties between the UK and the US, with the president claiming the two countries had done more good than any in human history. He and his wife have now left the UK, but there was a sting in the tail from the president about the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. More on that in a moment, but first, Chris Mason assesses a day of delicate diplomacy.
For more than a century, this country house in the Chiltern Hills of Buckinghamshire has been a retreat for the Prime Minister of the day. Churchill, Thatcher, Gorbachev, Clinton, history's cast list among those to host here and land here, but perhaps no visitor as gustily unpredictable as today's. President Trump greeted by the Prime Minister at Chequers, the UK's national security advisor, keeping an eye on things. At their news conference, both men talked up commercial deals announced this week, including in artificial intelligence and nuclear power. Then came our questions. Given his own experience, what advice would the President give the Prime Minister on illegal immigration?
I think your situation is very similar. You know, you have people coming in, and I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it destroys countries from within.
Echoes of the Prime Minister's words about an island of strangers, words he later disowned.
We struck the returns arrangement with France, and notwithstanding the challenges to that scheme, which you've seen in the last few days, a flight went off at 6:15 this morning, successfully returning someone under that scheme.
He knows, though, he has much more to do to persuade plenty he has a grip on the issue. Next, to the Middle East.
Mr. President, the UK is expected to recognise a Palestinian state in the coming days as the killing in Gaza continues. It often seems that you're the only person that Israel will listen to. What more can you say to them to tell them to stop? And why is the UK's position on a Palestinian state, in your view, wrong? And Prime Minister, what will the recognition of a Palestinian state actually achieve? Is it not just gesture politics to appease people in your own party?
So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score. One of our few disagreements, actually. We have to remember October 7th, one of the worst, most violent days in the history of the world. Not just there, the history of the world. And I got to see the tapes, and I wish I didn't see them, actually. But I got to see them. And I want an end. I want the hostages released. And I think it's going to be okay. But it has been a brutal period of time.
We absolutely agree on the need for peace and a roadmap, because the situation in Gaza is intolerable. The hostages have been held for a very, very long time, and they must be freed. And we need aid to get into Gaza at speed. And so it's within that context of a plan for peace, which we're working hard on, which not only did we discuss this morning, but our two teams have been working together on, that the question of recognition needs to be seen.
If you feel so strongly about officially recognizing Palestine for statehood, why are you waiting for President Trump to leave the country? Why can't you just do it right now? And isn't there a risk in rewarding Hamas with that?
Well, let me be really clear about Hamas. They're a terrorist organisation who can have no part in any future governance in Palestine. And what happened on October the 7th was the worst attack since the Holocaust. We have extended family in Israel. I understand firsthand the psychological impact that that had.
And from the Middle East to the war in Ukraine and Russia's leader.
Mr. President, you say that President Putin has let you down. Have negotiations run out of road, and what are your next steps to compel an end to this war?
Well, he has let me down. I mean, he's killing many people, and he's losing more people than he's killing.
We have to put extra pressure on Putin, and it's only when the president has put pressure on Putin that he's actually shown any inclination to move. So we have to ramp that pressure up.
This was scrutiny on a wide range of themes. The next one, a question about the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, long an acquaintance of Donald Trump and a friend too of...
The elephant in the room, Lord Mandelson, he is no longer the ambassador. Do you have some sympathy with him that he lost his job over historic links to Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you very much, sir.
I don't know him, actually. I had heard that.
A curious answer, given these warm exchanges in the White House in May.
I'd like to have that accent. Thank you.
The two men also met again in the White House just last week. Diplomacy and geopolitics against the backdrop of theatrical spectacle. The Red Devils parachute display team showing off as only they could. A state visit between two countries, often heading in broadly the same direction, and finding ways to be publicly comfortable when following different paths. Chris Mason, BBC News, at Chequers.
Well, while the two men met at Chequers, the First Lady Melania Trump stayed in Windsor, where she was entertained by the Queen and the Princess of Wales. Daniela Ralph was there.
A goodbye handshake at Windsor from a president full of praise for his royal host.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, it's a great gentleman. A great gentleman and a great king.
Hi, what are you doing? Who's going to tell? Tell me what
But today was about some First Lady diplomacy. Melania Trump was guided by the Princess of Wales and the Chief Scout.
This is Mrs. Trump. She's the First Lady of the United States. Do you know that?
It was a less formal side of Melania Trump on show.
We did together. So I draw these. I draw the teddy bear.
Drawing with the young scouts called squirrels and making some keen new friends on the way. It was just a case of mucking in with a lively crowd.
We've been collecting news to doing patterns. We made special pictures for the princess.
And we made some friends and lots of memories, didn't we?
And for their efforts, each scout earned a Go Wild badge, presented to them by a princess and a First Lady. Inside Windsor Castle, it was Queen Camilla offering some royal hospitality. The Queen shared her love of literature, showing the First Lady miniature versions of favourite books from the castle's doll's house. There was even a recipe book written by her son, Tom Parker Bowles.
Oh my goodness me, this is Tom's recipe of my roast chicken.
And with local school children, some questions about what they were writing.
Do you do all of the same stories, or you come up with a story? Yeah, it's beautiful.
There is a sense of relief here that the royal side of the state visit has run so smoothly. The King has done what the government asked of him, to make the President and First Lady feel that their visit was special. State visits are designed as shows of friendship, where division and difference are mostly put aside. The royal family will view this as a successful week. Daniela Ralph, BBC News, Windsor Castle.
Well, let's take stock of this visit with Chris Mason and also Sarah Smith, our North America editor. Chris, first of all, the breaking news tonight, the President's attack on the Mayor of London.
Yeah, which in and of itself, Rita, is not that surprising, that he said some pretty robust things about the Mayor in the past. But after a day where he was very careful to be diplomatic, very careful with his language, he hasn't been. And this is on the flight home. To give you a sense of the history in terms of the relationship between the Mayor and the President, back in 2019, on his way to the first state visit, as he was arriving, he accused or called Sir Sadiq a stone-cold loser. Actually, back in July, when he was at Turnberry in Ayrshire, he described him as a nasty person. Here he is on the plane, as I say, heading back to Washington this evening.
You wanted to be there, as I understand. I didn't want him. I've not liked him for a long time. I just think, you know, I have a certain pride in London and UK. My mother was born in Scotland, as you know. And when I see Mayor Khan do a bad job, the stabbings and the dirt and the filth, it's not the same. No, I didn't want him there.
The reference to being there is a reference to the banquet, the state banquet last night. I should say that I've been in touch with the Mayor's team this evening. They have not yet replied, nor have we established the facts around the whole process of the invitations for the banquet. But yeah, after a day of diplomatic language, rather less so on his way home from the President.
OK. Well, Sarah, from his point of view, will Donald Trump have got everything he wanted from this visit?
Oh, yeah, he has been delighted by this, and his team around him are practically purring with pleasure at how it all went. I was told that the absolute highlight for the President was the state banquet, which he, of course, said at the time was one of the highest honours of his life. He's everything he wanted in terms of the flattery and the pictures, the images of him surrounded by royal grandeur going back to television sets in America have been provided. But what will it change in terms of his relationship with the United Kingdom? Well, I spoke to his chief of staff, who said that as delighted as they are, no, it's not going to make any difference when they talk about international relations or even trade and tariffs, that the President will always do what's best for America, but they have been delighted by being shown such a good time.
And Chris, the Trump team purring with pleasure. What about the Starmer team?
The word delighted features as well from them. They are delighted. They're relieved as well because they know the jeopardy of appearing in public with the President. You can never be quite sure what is going to happen. I think they feel that they've managed to tame the President's sort of more erratic tendencies when the two of them appear in public. What was striking in that news conference today, Rita, was that even where there were disagreements, and there are several disagreements, the President managed to channel them almost past the Prime Minister rather than directly at him. Downing Street really value the FaceTime. They've had a lot of FaceTime with the President in the last couple of days and indeed in recent months. And with that, the chance to make the UK's case. And they also talk up the economic deals that have been announced in the last couple of days. But as Sarah was reflecting, there's one thing getting the FaceTime, much better than the alternative. Another, having a great relationship, better than the alternative. But to what extent is it moulding the position of the White House? That is where it gets trickier from Downing Street's perspective.
Chris, Sarah, thank you both very much. And Victoria Derbyshire will have more on the state visit on Newsnight on BBC Two shortly. Victoria.
Thank you, Rita. Yes, as he flies back home on Air Force One, President Trump has said that US TV networks could have their licences revoked if they're too critical of him. This comes after last night's cancellation of comedian Jimmy Kimmel's late-night TV show. Is free speech under threat in America? That's Newsnight Live, BBC Two, BBC News and iPlayer. See you soon.
Thank you, Victoria. The High Court has rejected a legal challenge to the government's deal with France to send people coming to the UK illegally on small boats back under what's been called the one-in, one-out scheme. Lawyers for an Eritrean man had argued that France wouldn't look after him properly as a victim of human trafficking, but the court disagreed, paving the way for a flight to take off tomorrow morning. The deal with France, agreed a little over a month ago, was set up in the hope of deterring small boat crossings. The first return under the scheme took place earlier today. Well, Dominic Casciani is here with me. A significant win for the government, Dominic?
Oh, for sure, Rita. I mean, they're going to be cock-a-hoop in government tonight about this because of the way the judge handled this. So not only did they get a flight off this morning after a week of, you know, a lot of negative headlines suggesting the whole thing was becoming a shambles, they've now got, in theory, another one going tomorrow morning. Let's see if it goes. But critically, I think what's really important is about how the judge actually dealt with this case and what it could say for further cases. Human rights has been presented by some as the enemy of what's going on at the Channel. But in actual fact, in this case, human rights actually turned out to be the Home Secretary's friend, because France, the judge decided, could be relied on to fairly treat this man and deal with his claim to be a victim of trafficking there, because it effectively follows the same human rights standards as the UK. And therefore, they say, well, send him to France because that's where he came from. That's a really important win for the Home Secretary, because it means that some of the 100 or so, there's about 100 men in detention at the moment. A fair few of them are saying they're victims of trafficking. And I think if they start to bring injunctions, unless they've got really different facts to this individual, they're going to really struggle based on what the judge said tonight. Just one of the things he said, the public interest lies with the Home Secretary. This agreement is an attempt to disrupt the business model of smugglers, provide a deterrent and end a serious risk to life and limb. And those words from that judge will be an absolute delight to the Home Secretary.
Dominic, thank you very much. Dominic Casciani there. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4%. The bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, warned that the UK wasn't out of the woods yet in terms of rising inflation. Analysts hadn't expected a cut, given that prices are increasing at nearly twice the bank's target rate of 2%. 3 people have been arrested in Essex by counter-terrorism officers on suspicion of spying for Russia. The Metropolitan Police say 2 men, aged 41 and 46, and a 35-year-old woman were detained at 2 separate addresses in the Grays area yesterday and have since been released on bail. One of the biggest stars on American television, the talk show host Jimmy Kimmel, has been taken off air indefinitely because of comments he made about the murder of the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. ABC suspended Mr. Kimmel after he said that many of President Trump's supporters were working hard to capitalise on Charlie Kirk's murder. As we've heard, speaking on Air Force One tonight, President Trump suggested TV networks which cover him negatively could lose their broadcast licences. Nader Tawfik reports now from New York.
Moments from going on air yesterday, suddenly one of the titans of late-night television, Jimmy Kimmel, was sent home. His show put on hold indefinitely, leaving Americans without a culturally significant staple of network TV. The genre, blending entertainment with sharp political commentary, has been a target of President Trump's for some time. And the administration didn't quite like this particular monologue.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
In response, the man in charge of TV and radio licenses, a Trump appointee, delivered this warning on a conservative podcast.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
The message was received by Disney's ABC and the country's largest local television company, which is in the middle of a $6 billion merger. President Trump called the indefinite suspension great news for America, writing in a social media post, "Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done." He then advocated for 2 other late-night hosts to also be taken off air. And then he doubled down, openly talking about removing networks' licenses.
But when you go back and you take a look, all they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. They're an arm of the Democrat Party.
Others feel very differently and made their views known outside of Disney's offices in California.
I thought it was a violation of free speech in the First Amendment. I think it's a government oversight, and we're here to protest it.
I put out the call for people to come out and speak up for their First Amendment rights, speak up for comedy and criticism, the ability to have an opinion about the President of the United States.
The irony here is that Charlie Kirk was celebrated as a free speech champion by conservatives, many of whom are now cheering that Jimmy Kimmel, a frequent critic of President Trump, has been taken off air. Democratic lawmakers say an inexcusable act of political violence is now being exploited to censor critics. Neda Tawfiq, BBC News, New York.
The two former Labour MPs who plan to launch a new left-wing party this autumn appear to be at loggerheads. Zara Sultana has accused allies of the former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn of overseeing a sexist boys' club. Mr Corbyn has said her attempts to sign up new members of the party were unauthorised and should be ignored. Well, let's go to Westminster and to Ian Watson. And Ian, they're fighting already and this party's not even off the ground.
Well, it doesn't even have a formal name yet, Rita. Its working title is Your Party, but tonight questions are being asked as to whose party it actually is. Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn were supposed to be working together, but today Zara Sultana emailed supporters inviting them to become actual members at a cost of £55 a year. Within hours, Jeremy Corbyn and his backers had issued a statement saying an unauthorised email was sent. That email should be ignored by all supporters and any direct debits should be immediately cancelled. Now, in response, Zara Sultana said she'd been marginalised in the setting up of this new party. She said, "I've been subjected to what can only be described as a sexist boys' club. I've been treated appallingly and excluded completely." And it doesn't end there, Rita, because tonight Jeremy Corbyn supporters are saying they've referred her to the Information Commissioner's office for setting up what they allege to be a false membership system. Now, to be perfectly honest, Rita, splits within left-wing parties are not uncommon, but it is very rare for divisions of this kind to be on display before a party has even been set up. And there were those on the political left hoping that this new party, alongside the Greens, could challenge Labour. But it seems tonight the really challenging thing for them is to get them to work together.
Yeah, thank you. More than 500,000 people in France have been taking part in protests after trade unions called for a nationwide day of strike action against planned government budget cuts. Teachers, train drivers, pharmacists and hospital staff are among those who've walked out. The government says 80,000 police officers were deployed on the streets and tear gas has been used in some cities. Here's Andrew Harding.
French police rushing to contain potential rioters in Paris this afternoon. But nationwide, this has been a largely peaceful day of protest, led by unions and by the left, angry at President Emmanuel Macron and his government's attempts to cut a soaring budget deficit.
He's making the rich richer, and I think the poor are going poor, and the public services and all the needs of the society are collapsing.
And we would like that rich people pay more, so that more taxes, so that the system could be more equal.
The French are frustrated and divided. The problem, though, is that their parliament is even more deadlocked, with no spirit, no tradition of compromise that might allow them to pass urgently needed reforms.
A brand new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, is trying, but his gleeful rivals to the right and left could oust him at any moment. The sense of permanent crisis even threatens President Macron himself.
I'd like to believe President Macron understands that the greatest danger for him and for our democratic institutions is yet another change of government, because then the pressure for him to step down will grow. So I hope he'll seek compromise. The only people benefiting from this crisis are the far right.
And they're winning.
They could win.
Towards evening, the violence begins to escalate here. It's become almost routine, a tiny minority attacking the police in a country facing some daunting challenges. Andrew Harding, BBC News, Paris.
Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron has another major headache, this time over a court case in the US, where he and his wife are planning to present photographic and scientific evidence to a court to prove that Brigitte Macron is a woman. The couple is suing a right-wing influencer who's told millions of online followers that Mrs. Macron was born a man. The couple's lawyer has told the BBC that Candace Owens' claims are distracting for the president. Anushka Mutanda-Dawati reports.
Come on, Brigitte, Élysée Palace, all the aides. The allegations made by the American right-wing influencer have not dominated mainstream media headlines, but online, they're everywhere.
I believe that his wife was born Jean-Michel Trogneau and transitioned in his early 30s. And I believe that the entire state is colluding to protect that secret. And like I said, I would stake my entire professional career on all of those points, you guys. We'll see you next time.
Candace Owens claims to her more than 5 million YouTube subscribers that Brigitte Macron was born a man. Right there. Look at the size of that hand! Other posts include this TikTok video in which Candace comments on the size of Mrs. Macron's hands, which she holds up as evidence for her accusation. She says she's also asked the Macrons to send her pictures of Brigitte pregnant, claiming that would be enough to stop her repeating the claims. In July, the Macrons filed a lawsuit in the US against Owens for defamation, and now their lawyers say they're going to present these photos and specific scientific evidence to counter the claim in open court.
We are prepared to supply all of those materials, but we're just going to do it in open court, where there are rules, where the rules of evidence apply, where there's proof, and where it can be done publicly in a way that people will see how it's presented.
Now, to win this case, the Macrons have to prove that Candace said something she knew to be false, or that she recklessly disregarded the fact that it might be false, but said it as a fact anyway. Candace Owens' legal team have filed a motion to dismiss, while Candace is standing by her claims, saying she truly believes them. The Macrons' lawyers are now deciding how they are going to respond, but they say the couple remain united and ready to fight it out in court. Anushka Mutanda-Dawati, BBC News.
And if you'd like to hear more on this, just search for the Fame Under Fire podcast on BBC Sounds. 2 British women are through to tomorrow's 200-metre final at the World Athletics in Tokyo. Amy Hunt ran a personal best in her semi-final, and the 2019 world champion Dina Asher-Smith is also through. Zarnell Hughes also made the men's final. Meanwhile, Keely Hodgkinson began her pursuit of a first world title by cruising through to the semi-finals of the women's 800 metres, along with fellow Brit Georgia Hunter-Bell. Now, Bjorn Borg was a teenager when he burst onto the tennis scene in the 1970s. He won Wimbledon 5 consecutive times, the French Open 6 times, and he was idolised like a rock star. Tennis had never seen anything like him. But then he suddenly quit, and now, more than 40 years later, he's been speaking openly about his struggles with alcohol and drugs in the years after, and about his recent cancer diagnosis. Tim Muffet went to Stockholm to meet him.
That's it. The Swedish Bjorn Borg dominated tennis in the late 70s.
Borg arrived last year at Wimbledon for the first time to scenes of near riot.
Borg's arrival in Britain in the early 70s had a huge impact on and off the court.
I've never seen this before in my life.
And they were running out from the stands. Maybe I come a Swede, come with a blonde hair. I have no idea what happened. Something happened in tennis during that time.
There were 5 consecutive men's singles titles at Wimbledon. And then in 1983, a decision that stunned the sport. Borg announced he was quitting tennis, aged just 26. Do you regret that?
I had enough. I lost the interest in that way, the motivation. If I knew what's going to happen the years after, I would continue to play tennis, of course.
In the book, you describe how at times your life was a dangerous mix of drugs, pills and alcohol.
Yes.
How bad did things get?
I had no plan. This was a huge problem. People today, for instance, they have guidance. I had nothing. I didn't know what to do. I was lost in the world. It was more drugs, it was pills, it was alcohol. I was close to dying many times.
In the book, you reveal that you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Yeah. I've always been checking myself for prostate cancer. 2023, checked myself again, and the doctor said, doesn't look too good.
And in the book, you describe it as extremely aggressive and at its most advanced stage. And you also say that you're going to fight every day like it's a Wimbledon final.
I spoke to the doctor, and he said this is really, really bad. Okay, but it's done. And he said, but you have these sleeping cancer cells in your body. It's going to be a fight in the future. And I hope I'm going to be okay. I might be okay. I might not be okay. So every 6 months, I go and test myself. And right now, I did my last test 2 weeks ago. So I'm okay. I take day by day, year by year, hopefully. It's the thing you have to live with.
Tim Muffet, BBC News.
Bjorn Borg speaking very frankly about his struggles. Time for a look at the weather now with Louise Lear. Hi, Louise.
Hi there. Anything but straightforward, Rita, the weather story at the moment. We've had quite a lot of cloud around today, although it was quite humid. Grey skies in Cambridge. The sunshine came out at the end of the day, but actually Cambridge could be one of our hot spots tomorrow with a high of 26 degrees. We're stepping back into summer. Not for long, because by Monday, those temperatures will be a good 10 degrees lower. And in actual fact, those daytime maximums on Monday will actually be the minimums over the next few hours. So a real messy story. We're likely to see temperatures into the mid-teens. We're also going to see some rain, and where that rain sits, it will possibly linger for much of the next 48 hours. So we've got some wet weather through the north of England and down through the Irish Sea. To the south of that, that's where we've got that humidity, and that's where we're likely to see the highest temperatures. To the north, there'll be a few scattered showers, but a good deal of sunshine in Scotland and Northern Ireland. We could see highs of 19 degrees. The rain quite persistent throughout the afternoon across the north of England and into North Wales. But look at this, 25 degrees, 77 Fahrenheit. A brief spell of heat and sun. But as we go into Saturday, we continue to see this plunge of rain moving its way across the north of England and through the Irish Sea. That is the dividing line between this colder air now starting to tuck in behind across Scotland and Northern Ireland. And we just cling on to a little bit of warmth still down in the southeast with highs of 22 degrees. But as the low pressure pulls away through the second half of the weekend, that is going to open the back door and let that breeze in. Yes, it's going to be notably colder for all of us as we move into Monday, and that will certainly be a shock to the system. So some sunshine around, wet and windy on Saturday, colder for all by Sunday. Rita.
Louise, thank you very much. And that is tonight's BBC News at 10. The news continues here on BBC One, as now it's time for the news where you are. Good night.